What's up, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast, and it's ranks time. We got wide receiver ranks for Week 10. I'm Chris Welsh. Joining me, of course, is Pat Fitzmaurice and the fresh look Andrew Erickson with the new cut and everything. Yes, sir. We salute you, my friend. We got Week 10 ranks. We're going to be breaking down the wide receivers. We got the top 36. We're going to be looking at ECR, tiers, some of the biggest questions, because there are some questions. Unfortunately, some of us wide receivers didn't really get hit with it, Erickson, but we've been having to make some very sad moves this week. Like Pat and I had to comfort our friend and walk our friend through cutting Jaden Daniels this morning. We had to talk about the loss of Tucker Kraft. There's a lot of difficult changes happening in the fantasy space, Erickson. They're just not happening at wide receiver so much.
Yeah, wide receiver was okay last week. It was just so depressing going through my waivers last night, cutting Tucker Kraft like 7 times. Just every single time, it just hurt even more. So, but we're looking to bounce back. Dalton Schultz, take me to victory. Should be a fun week.
It'll be okay, Erickson. It's going to be okay. Fitzy, how we doing, brother? Tough week for your Packers, but as you said before the show, you said if I didn't think it could have gotten worse for any team than yours, it definitely did happen, unfortunately, with the Commanders. So how are we holding up after a pretty brutal loss?
Yeah, brutal loss. Still a little upset about it, but it was probably a little worse for the Commanders, who had the brutal loss and lost their quarterback. So that was a tough week. And you know why we didn't lose any wide receivers last week, Welsh? It was because the Buccaneers were on bye. Like they are Buccaneers receivers are like the Spinal Tap drummers. Just like bad things always happening.
The Niners are already gone. So all the Niners wide receivers just don't exist. So either one of those teams, they can't lose them. But we will be talking about the ranks. Speaking of, let's give a shout out. We do the ranks contest, accuracy contest every single week. And we like to shout out the top 3 finishes. And then if there's any other special like Fantasy Pro shout outs, we do that. Coming in at number 1 on the Week 9 ranks, and I've talked with Frank before, and I hope I'm saying the name correctly, and I definitely apologize if not. Frank Amarante with the game day finished number 1 in the Week 9 accuracy ranks. Joe Pepe with number 2 from Beyond the Gridiron, and number 3, Mark Ringo from Sleepers and Busts. Those were your top 3 most accurate rankers in Week 9, which is a pretty tough week. It was a pretty tough week with all the weird craziness and the injuries and stuff. So shout out to them for sure. Also, a special Fantasy Pro shout out to Kelly Kirby, who finished inside the top 25 this week. There was no Erickson. There was no Fitzy. Not even a joke. I finished almost exactly where I finish every single week. I was the same thing. And guess what? I had the one position that was like super awesome and stuff. Erickson, what you have something to say here?
I mean, I don't need to toot my own horn, but I was 8 last week, Welsh.
No, you weren't.
Yes, he was.
Were you really? Did I miss it?
Yes.
You did miss
I totally missed that. I totally missed that.
Totally doesn't want to give Erickson his flowers, man.
Is that for real? I went through you know what? I must have like quickly gone through the top 10 digits. So now I know why you were going, clicking the chin there, getting all Jay Leno on me with the chin in me. You're right. There it is. It's right there. Number 8. It's very disrespectful. You were the number 2 tight end. Erickson, how do you do it? How do you do these wonderful things?
All the credit in the world goes to Brock Bowers. That was basically the thesis of the tight end play, was just rank him above consensus, bet on him being healthy, and Brock Bowers does what Brock Bowers does and scores 3 touchdowns. So
all glory to him. All glory to Brock Bowers. So there you go. I just completely missed it. It's my bad, brother. So shout out to Erickson at 8, which is definitely our pros crew. I think they posted it in our accuracy channel. Wild. We've got like 4 or 5 inside the top 30 right now. You guys are killing it. Probably the best rank year I think we've ever had as a collective group. Me just kind of sitting out a little bit in the ethers above Joe Pisapia, which is really my only goal at the end of the day, in Bogman. So I'm doing what I need to do. You guys are doing what you guys need to do, and we are going to be doing it here for you. So we're going to get into the top 36. Congrats to Erickson on the top 8 and all the rest of the crew. Fantasypros.com/rankings if you guys want to check out where all of it's going on. Erickson's never going to let me hear the end of this too, that I completely skipped him. I can't believe it. Just such a fail job here. FantasyPros.com/rankings if you want to check out what the expert consensus rankings looks like for this week at all the positions. You can go and click through, and there's a whole bunch more. You can click on dynasty tabs and everything. Before we get into wide receiver 1 tiers, let's talk about a wide receiver 1. You, my friends, listening, yes, you have a chance to win a Justin Jefferson signed Vikings jersey for free. This is courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com. And here's all you've got to do. Go to fantasypros.com/contest. There's a form there. Complete that sucker. And then you can either download the Fantasy Pros app. You can leave a review on our podcast. Follow us on X, Instagram, TikTok at Fantasy Pros. In fact, you can actually do all of those things, and that will get you more entries. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications so you're alerted when new episodes are up, and you can claim a Justin Jefferson signed jersey. That, my friends, is pretty sweet. Wide receiver ranks for week 10. Let's get into it. We've got the big board. And the big board starts with Puka Nacua going against my San Francisco 49ers because their secondary is garbage. So Puka Nacua at 1, Jackson Smith and Jigba at 2, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, aforementioned, Justin Jefferson, and Davante Adams. That is your top 6. At 7, Emeka Egbuka, Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, Rome Odunze, Ladd McConkey, and Cortland Sutton. Those are the top 12, gentlemen. Let's start with Nico Collins. Some questions, I think, on Nico Collins, just overall value moving forward. There's a CJ Stroud issue if he's going to be able to get out of Proto. He is wide receiver 8 on ECR. You guys are a little bit lower. It's nothing insane, but Fitzy, you've pushed him outside of a wide receiver 1. Erickson, you've got him at 12. Fitzy, let's start with you. What is the concerns if they are beyond Davis Mills with Nico Collins moving forward?
Davis Mills is definitely one of the big concerns, Welsh. I don't know if it will be completely ruinous to Nico's productivity, but it would certainly make it hard to justify a top 12 ranking at wide receiver for Nico if Davis Mills starts. I mean, he's averaging 5.4 yards per attempt or something like that. And even with CJ Stroud staying healthy for the first 8 weeks of the season, Nico is barely on a 1,000-yard pace. I think he's on pace for 1,004 yards this season. The Texans' offense is just sort of bad, and I think you can trace it to just Texans GM Nick Caserio doing very little to upgrade that offensive line in the offseason, and it's just been a problem for the Texans. So it's kind of dragging down everyone, including Nico. I'm just finding it harder and harder to put him in wide receiver 1 range every week.
Erickson, on ECR, you can see Ladd McConkey here at 11. He's got the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not looking at your total ranks here. Are you a Ladd over Nico guy? You've got Nico at 12 here, so I don't know what your 11 and 12 looks like. What do you think about that versus and your overall thoughts on Nico Collins this week?
I like Ladd over Nico Collins this week. He has his quarterback healthy, at least at the beginning of the game. We don't know what it's going to be like for Justin Herbert with another patchwork offensive line with Joe Alt put on injured reserve. And I don't think Trevor Penning is going to save the day for the Chargers offensive line. So there's that concern, but yeah, I have similar concerns with Collins in regards to Davis Mills being the quarterback. We've seen this before through multiple seasons. It's not great. He knows that Collins is the number 1 wide receiver, and the Texans refuse to play their more talented rookie receivers, and they just want to trot out Christian Kirk, Xavier Hutchinson, who just, they're not delivering, and they're making the offense worse. So Collins will still see the lion's share of targets. He's explosive after the catch. And to ECR's credit, it is a good matchup for him against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He has one 100-yard game this season. It was against the Jaguars earlier in the year. So there is upside here. It does get a little bit dampened, though, if there is no CJ Stroud. And the Texans, despite how bad their offensive line has already been, they had more offensive line injuries last week as well. So I think that it's kind of like a boom or bust play, and the ECR is leaning more into the matchup where Fitz and I are a little bit more concerned with the quarterback.
And as always, these are wide receiver 1s, so it's a very nuanced conversation of you're most likely starting these guys. This might show levels of confidence, but some of you out there might have some actual decisions you can make on these guys. But he is ECR 8. You guys are just a little bit lower, thinking that based off quarterback play, not necessarily matchup, there could be more of an effect. How about Rome Odunze coming off of a fat donut. ECR 10. Fitzy, you've got him at 8, and Erickson, you've got him at 14. So you guys are split on this one. Erickson, let's go to the negative conversation here. You've got him below Nico Collins right now. Loveland, absolute dude. Is Loveland going to take away from some of the shares? Is Rome Odunze's dad right? Should he have been traded?
I did not see that up. What is that? Is Rome Odunze's dad out here he wants him off the team?
Yeah, when there was someone that was like, you got to get Rome Odunze on a team that will throw him the ball, and Rome Odunze's dad jumped in with like a, this, like, let's do this.
What did he do with Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad, where he basically shows all the plays where his wide receiver is open, where his son is open, and Baker Mayfield just misses him? Is that like the kind of dad we're seeing?
It probably is. I would appreciate that, by the way. I think that's the type of work. If a dad's going to like chime in doing that, at least get the all 22 or whatever and show all the plays that aren't going to him.
I think he actually did like retweet something about like how the like separation stats for Odunze had been so good or something, and he like retweeted that too. So
well, I bet Odunze's dad didn't show the clip of Odunze dropping a touchdown last week. So
probably not.
Yes, the target share was not there for Odunze last week in a game where, when you look at that box score, you must be salivating, thinking, man, I started Odunze last week, he must have smashed. You look up, oh yeah, Caleb Williams had more catches than Rome Odunze did. So definitely not going to expect that type of outcome 2 weeks in a row, especially in a plus matchup against the New York Giants. So I understand the top 10 upside with Odunze, but he has been extremely boom or bust this season, especially since the Bears bye week. He's had one good game since their bye week, and he's had 3 absolute duds. And the common theme with the games where Odunze has dudded out is those are matchups where the Bears have been able to establish the run. Against the Saints, last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Commanders. In those matchups where the Bears have been able to run the ball either with Kyle Monangai and / or DeAndre Swift, he's been outside the top 50 wide receivers. Odunze has 1 top 10 finish this season. 1. So I can't confidently rank him as a top 10 wide receiver in ECR if he's only done it 1 time when we've played 7 games. And I know that you can run the ball against the New York Giants, and Ben Johnson knows that. So that's my only concern. I agree that the upside is there for him to finish as a top 10 guy, but I like some of these other receivers in some other spots this week, and I think he's got a little bit more boom or bust to him.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic where it's a phenomenal matchup, but you can run all day long. Tune into the running backs episode when we talk about Kyle Monangai. You can run on the Giants. They will spread the ball out. Loveland just took a big step up. Like, Odunze could definitely do it on some big plays. You just kind of worry that there's not like massive volume. I don't know. What do you think, Fitzy? You've got him higher than consensus. It's hard to ignore the matchup, though.
Yeah, I mean, if Erickson is going to jump off the Rome Odunze train, more elbow room for me. I'll just be in the bar car throwing down gin and tonics with Rome Odunze's dad. Yeah, I mean, I always like taking a good wide receiver off a shutout because that guy's quarterback is going to give him a little extra loving during the next game. Plus, I am a little concerned that maybe Ben Johnson just tries to run the ball because the Bears' running game has been fantastic lately. Like, their offensive line is just destroying people. But the matchup is pretty good for Odunze, too. The Giants have allowed the 3rd most receptions, 4th most receiving yards, and 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And the Giants might not have starting cornerback Paulson Adebo, who's missed a couple of games with a knee injury. So it sets up pretty well for the Giants, or for the Bears, to have a nice balanced offense against the Giants. Hopefully they get Rome re-involved this week.
Fitzy laid back with his mind on his money and his money on his mind. Let's go to wide receiver 2s. Gin and juice, guys. Come on. Wide receiver 2s, 13 through 24. Starting with Zay Flowers coming in at 13. We got A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, DeVonta Smith, Marvin Harrison, Stephon Diggs. That's your top half. We got Debo, DK Metcalf at 20, DJ Moore, Teteroa McMillan, Chris Olave, and Jordan Addison. How about DeVonta Smith? Didn't you guys love that trade report where there was that, I think it was Schefter that just went out of his way to report, hey guys, by the way, A.J. Brown's not getting traded. We're like, oh, thank you so much for that rousing report here. Obvious effects on DeVonta Smith. He's wide receiver 16. Fitzy, you've got him at 18. Erickson is at 16. Fitzy, let's start with you. What say you on DeVonta Smith this week going up against your Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, he got off to a slow start this season, but has really come on. First 4 games of the season, DeVonta Smith averaged 39.5 receiving yards a game. Over his last 4, he has averaged 107.5 yards per game. So on an upswing. I just don't want to chase recent results with DeVonta Smith. We've sort of seen in the past that when both A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert are healthy, DeVonta Smith generally produces as more of a low-end wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. And then when either A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert miss a game, Smith often produces like a wide receiver 1 or high-end wide receiver 2. So A.J. Brown and and Dallas Goedert both healthy for this one. Like Davante is a terrific player. He could absolutely smash this week. I don't think there are any cornerback matchups to really fear with the Packers, but Smith does share targets with 2 really good pass catchers, and the Eagles are still one of the run-heaviest teams in the league.
Yeah, that right there. Like, and will they pass the ball? It's always just like a crapshoot if the Eagles are going to get into the passing game. Erickson, what do you think? You've got DeVonta Smith at ECR. You've been kind of a DeVonta Smith stan. I also feel like you've kind of been, when you're on him, you're on him. But I don't know if you feel like adamant about DeVonta Smith this week.
Yeah, he's a tough guy to rank because, well, A.J. Brown missed the last game the Eagles played in Week 8 with a hamstring injury, and you're presuming that out of a bye week he's healthy, but because they play on Monday night, we're not going to get that first injury report till Thursday. So we don't know if he's healthy, right? So if he comes out and doesn't practice, well, then DeVonta Smith, hello, wide receiver ranking, number 1 for DeVonta Smith. And to Smith's credit, yes, he does always benefit when guys miss time, but he has been the more efficient receiver than A.J. Brown this season. He's been better. He's outscored A.J. Brown when they've both been healthy in the lineup at the same time through 7 weeks. Smith is wide receiver 22 in points per game, and he has better usage, wide receiver 34 in expected points per game. A.J. Brown is wide receiver 32 in points per game, wide receiver 40 in expected points per game. So that is in the 7 games that they played. So you're not getting the boosted 1 week where DeVonta Smith played without A.J. Brown. Smith's averaging a career high yards per route run, 2.24. because he's playing more out of the slot. A.J. Brown, he's averaging a career low yards per route run. So I think that, again, I love A.J. Brown. I think that he is one of the most alpha wide receivers. But in the current context of this offense, whether he's dealing with his hamstring injury or not, I don't know if that's hampering his production, Smith has been the more efficient receiver on a yards per route run basis. So I can't just totally move him down to the wide receiver 3 ranks when A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert are healthy, just because he has been the more efficient guy. And I think the matchup against the Packers, like, we know that you can pick on their secondary a little bit. We still don't know also how healthy is Saquon Barkley. You know, he also got hurt before the Eagles bye week. So a lot of question marks with some of these injuries, but I guess I'm most confident in DeVonta Smith being, hey, he's been good through 8 weeks, and I expect that to continue out of the bye week.
We didn't talk a ton about DJ Moore when we were talking about Rome Odunze. But an interesting thing you guys have going on here is you guys are kind of flipped on Odunze, unlike, one really likes, maybe not. You guys both don't seem to like DJ Moore this week, and we know the matchup is really good. He's ranked pretty aggressively. He's ranked at 21 on this list, obviously, like matchup based. He's ranked ahead of Teteroa McMillan and Chris Olave. We're going to talk about Chris Olave in a second. I'd actually love to get your take on DJ Moore versus Teteroa, because I feel like there's a little bit of a negative thing that's going on with Teteroa right now. Fitzy, you've got DJ Moore at 25. Erickson, you got him at 27. So you guys have pushed him out of wide receiver 2. Maybe you'll tie in some of the stuff we talked about with Rome Odunze. But Erickson, you're the lowest on it. Let's start with DJ Moore, and then how do you think they compare up Teteroa McMillan versus DJ Moore? Do you think it's close?
I don't think it's necessarily close. Teteroa McMillan is the clear-cut alpha in his passing game, where DJ Moore has been like a souped-up gadget player in the Ben Johnson offense. And I think ECR is chasing 2 touchdowns from DJ Moore last week when his usage did not change at all. He's been the same guy basically every single week, 5 to 7 targets every single game. He has 0 games with a 20% target share this season. 0. Teteroa McMillan, I don't know if he's had a game with fewer than a 20% target share at any point. So I think McMillan has a much higher floor than DJ Moore does. I think that maybe we're just buying too much into the Giants matchup where, yes, we expect some of these Bears to pop off. Is everybody going to pop off again for a second straight week? And last week, not all the Bears scored, right? We just talked about Odunze did nothing. So I think someone is going to be left holding the bag here from the Bears. And if DJ Moore doesn't score 2 touchdowns like he did last week, or he rushed for a touchdown and threw a touchdown, if that doesn't happen 2 weeks in a row, then he's going to be finishing much closer to where he's been all year long in the wide receiver 3 range. So I understand that there's an upside case with DJ Moore. I think this is a really aggressive rank on him when there's really no usage change for him in this offense. So I don't know, Fitz, if you feel any different.
Yeah, Fitzy, really, I was curious, do you think this is a misrank? Do you think this 21 rank of DJ Moore is just completely off by ECR? And then obviously I'd like to get your take, McMillan versus Moore.
Even though we just talked about the Giants being a good matchup for the Bears receivers, I do think there's some recency bias baked into this ECR. Last week was just the 7th time that DJ Moore has topped 70 receiving yards in the 25 games he's played with Caleb Williams. So DJ Moore has been held to 70 or fewer, actually under 70 receiving yards in 72% of the games he's played with Caleb. And going into week 9, DJ Moore was outside the top 40 in fantasy scoring among wide receivers, both in total points and points per game. So I do think ECR seems a little high here.
All right. No DJ Moore, at least, versus where ECR is. How about Chris Olave? This is a sweep. ECR is 24. You're 24. You're 24. Oprah meme. Everybody gets 24 for Chris Olave. And it's built around a couple things. Rashid Shaheed leaving, I think, kind of creates this sense of like, he's going to be able to explode because of targets. I'm not even necessarily so sure about that, by the way, just because Jauan Johnson. But it's also a great matchup against Carolina. Unfortunately, Tyler Shough is the quarterback. So, Fitzy, let's start with you on this one. Where are you at on Chris Olave? Is there a sense of optimism that he can take another step? There's a gear up, or is it just like, hey, there's probably a little bit more on the target share to be had?
I like the player, and I wanted to rank him higher than this. It does kind of stand to reason that the departure of Rashid Shaheed might mean some target spillover for Chris Olave. I just worry about the target delivery mechanism, like Tyler Shough, averaging 5.4 yards per attempt so far. I think I gave that number earlier to Davis Mills. I meant for Tyler Shough. And just the Saints offense feels like a time bomb right now. They lost center Eric McCoy to a season-ending injury. They're not going to have starting left tackle Talise Fuaga for this game, high ankle sprain. They just traded away right tackle Trevor Penning to the Chargers. Like the Saints offense is just a train wreck right now. So it's hard for me to feel good about any single component, even though Olave is the component I feel best about.
Erickson, was Shaheed getting traded a positive uptick for Chris Olave, or it's just all kind of a continuation of the same stuff?
I think it's a continuation of the same stuff. Olave's already had a really high target share all year long. I know this past week it was the Shaheed showcase game where he had to have a 36% target share to make sure they were able to trade him for a strong return. So yeah, I think that he's probably going to see 8 to 10 targets. How much is that worth from Tyler Shough on the road, outside, against the Carolina Panthers, who I just can't get a read on defensively? When you look at fantasy points allowed, they are pretty good against wide receivers, and they do have some talented guys. They're just so boom or bust because one week they look like they're taking the step, and the next week they give up 200 rushing yards to James Cook. So it's really hard to gauge how good the Panthers defense is, but against one of the worst offenses in the NFL, I don't think the Saints can take advantage of, at times, what has been a bad Panthers defense, especially with a rookie quarterback making a start on the road. I mean, Carolina feels good. Carolina's winning games this year. They just beat the Packers. So, I mean, what are the Saints playing for, right? 2026. I don't know why Alvin Kamara's still on the team, right? So I think that Olave is exactly ranked perfectly because he's a low-end wide receiver too, without upside. He's a floor play. He's better in PPR than half PPR. I would be surprised. Who's actually going to see a bump, in my opinion, for the Saints is Devon Vele, the wide receiver that they traded for. He's going to actually take on, I think, a full-time role. They've talked about him as a big slot guy. They like using him in the red zone. That's the other thing too with Olave. Even if they get in the red zone, it's more likely going to be a Taysom Hill touchdown than a Chris Olave one. So I think that he's a floor play.
Or Jauan Johnson, and throw him in there.
Or Jauan Johnson as well.
Yeah, that'd be one. All right, wide receiver threes are coming up, but today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably deep in the stats, injury reports, and matchups. On Hard Rock Bet, you can put your fantasy football knowledge to the test. Try your first bet on Hard Rock Bet today. Just place $5, and if it hits, you're not only going to get the winnings, but 150 in extra bonus bets. If you're looking for an edge before you lock in, check out the Hard Rock Bets Stats Hub. It's loaded with trends, streaks, and stats to help guide your picks. Numbers don't lie, and neither does the data in there. Check out the Stats Hub now, get the edge, and bet with confidence. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook for whenever you're in Florida, and it's also live in Arizona, where I'm at, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado, coming soon to more states too. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos every single day, so whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what you've got any day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit today. Not a cash offer, offered by Seminole Tribe in Florida, offered by Seminole Hard Rock Digital, LLC, in all other states. Must be 21 plus and physically present in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Tennessee, and Virginia to play. Terms and conditions apply. Concerned about gambling in Florida? Call 1-833-PLAY-WISE. In Indiana, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Wide receiver threes. Let's look at 25 through 36. Coming in at 25 is Wan'Dale Robinson, followed by Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, Jameson Williams, Romeo Doubs at 30. Was it Jauan Jennings season? I don't know. Comes in at 30. Khalil Shakir at 31. Alec Pierce, Troy Franklin, Garrett Wilson, Tez Johnson, and Parker Washington at 36. How about Jamison Williams? Erickson, how about Jameson Williams? It's JMO. ECR 28. Fitzy, you've got him at 29, but Erickson at 22. You were in with Debro last week, weren't you? Because Debro was big on JMO. I feel like you were as well. You're here this week, Erickson.
Yes, I am, because he's facing the Washington Commanders, who Sam Darnold absolutely shredded on Sunday Night Football with every type of receiver he was throwing the ball to. So I think the Lions, coming off a really bad loss against the Minnesota Vikings, just a bad draw for the Washington Commanders. I think that they're going to feel the force of an upset and pissed off Detroit Lions offense. And I think that Jared Goff, Gibbs, Jameson Williams, they're going to just do whatever they want against the Commanders defense that was already terrible, lost Lattimore. They're going to have no answers. And when you look at the Commanders defense, they've allowed the third most completions and league high 843 yards on vertical routes by opposing receivers this season. Who's the vertical receiver in the Lions offense? It's Jameson Williams. So I don't think that Williams has a really high floor. As we've seen, he's been very boomer bust this season. But if you're looking for a wide receiver that can give you a week winning type of performance, I think JMO's that guy this week.
Yeah, and I want to not be into JMO, but it's just too good of a matchup. It is too good of a matchup. But the floor part of this is a really interesting conversation, Fitzy. And you have him at 29. You know, you're right essentially at ECR. To me, this is like, you know, the inconsistent versus incredible matchup. And, you know, you kind of want to play the ceiling in some spots. But what do you think about Jameson Williams this week?
Yeah, last week we got the mea culpa from Lions offensive coordinator John Morton, who sort of fell on his sword with regard to JMO's usage the first 7 games for the Lions. JMO was averaging 4.3 targets, 2.4 catches, and just 41.3 receiving yards per game over the Lions' first 7 games. Got shut out against the Buccaneers in week 7. We'd kind of expected bigger things from Jameson Williams after his first 1,000-yard season in 2024. But coming out of the bye, 4 catches, 66 yards on 6 targets, had a nice 37-yard touchdown catch. It was his 3rd highest target total of the season, tied for his highest reception total. So we did get the coach speak bump from JMO in week 9, and now he's got this great matchup against the Commanders. Yeah, they're giving up 8.8 yards per pass attempt. And just to put that into perspective, the Dallas Cowboys are only giving up 8.2 yards per pass attempt. So they're more than half a yard worse than the Dallas Cowboys, who have been just a sieve against the pass all year. Erickson mentioned vertical receivers cooking against the Commanders, slot receivers also cooking against the Commanders. I guess that's my only fear here, is that I'm, just wondering if maybe it's an Amon-Ra St. Brown smash game, but maybe it could be an Amon-Ra St. Brown and a Jameson Williams smash game.
I was about to say, maybe it's everybody. Maybe it's just the whole crew.
Hearing Erickson talk about this game, I mean, he's our prime betting guy, and it sounds like maybe I'm not the only one who really likes the Lions at 8.5 points. Like, I'm happily laying 8.5 in this game.
I have this envision of like an Always Sunny theme that comes over us, and it just goes, all the guys smash against Washington, and that's just our theme for it, and I think they're all going to rock. What about Jauan Jennings, though? I don't feel very soothsayer-ish Erickson this week. He's ECR 30. I think it's still a really tough gauge. You guys are split. You guys are both technically lower than consensus. Erickson's at 31. Fitz, you kind of completely out. Fitz, let's start with you on your take on it. I wonder if it is solely tied to if Brock Purdy comes back or if it matters whatsoever. So where are you at on Jauan Jennings?
Yeah, that's part of it. I'll probably move Jennings up a little bit if we get news that Purdy is coming back. And one of the things that scared me about ranking Jauan Jennings this low was the recollection that the big Jauan Jennings breakout game last season came against the Rams, that 11 catch, 175 yard, 3 touchdown game against them in week 3 of 2024. But then in the second meeting with the Rams last year, Jennings only had 2 catches for 31 yards on 9 targets. So maybe it's not just a super specific great matchup for Jennings. This season, like, Jennings has kind of been a non-factor. Welsh, like, he's had one good game, 5 for 89 and a touchdown against the bad New Orleans Saints pass defense in week 2. Jennings has not had more than 45 receiving yards in any other game this season. And the Rams pass defense has actually been sneaky good this year. Like, this is not an easy matchup. I've just had a really hard time trying to peg Jauan Jennings. Like, in the offseason, Jacob Gibbs of CBS, friend of the show and a guy whose takes I always pay a close attention to, he was really high on Jauan. And let me ask you, Welsh, you're a 49ers fan. Like, what is your assessment of Jauan Jennings? Do you think he's good or merely average?
I actually think he's a very good player, but he's a crash test dummy this year. He's broken. Like, he's like, it's comical. Remember, it was like, he's got like 5 bruised, broken ribs, and I got the ankle thing, and he's got a million things that are going. He has not been healthy at all. He gets banged around every single game. He is the lack of health, I think, is really taken away. Plus, Mac doesn't target him ad nauseum. Mac moves the ball around. Mac was going Kendrick Bourne. They tried to kind of force it to Kittle. So I think he's a good wide receiver. I just don't think he's healthy. If Purdy's back, I do think that Purdy is going to target him a bunch. I don't think we're going to get those big, awesome breakaways. That's what you would get with Jauan. You'd have some, nice like 10-yard in. He'd come in, catch the ball, break a tackle, and make. I just don't think we're seeing a lot of that. I'm also worried about Kittle. So I'm torn here on this. Erickson, let's get your take. You're at 31. You're right at consensus. I think Purdy in general creates a better opportunity here. I just still don't know. I don't think it's top 30, and you don't have him there either. I just don't know we're going to get back to like that really fun version of Jauan Jennings. I just think they're going to spread the ball around, and he's got an opportunity to probably, his ceiling to me is probably like 5 for 80 and a score. That's about it.
Yeah, and that's not that dissimilar from what we saw last week, where he was 4 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown. He had 2 red zone targets in that game, so he had a chance to score another touchdown. But I would say with Jennings, I think that he's looked better the last couple weeks. I know like 3 weeks ago when it was, I'm playing with all these broken ribs, his production has kind of increased game by game since he talked about how injured he was playing. So you'd think that, okay, maybe he is getting healthier. And they even talked about that a little bit in some of these press conferences with Shanahan, talking about how Jennings is getting a little bit healthier. That being said, Ricky Pearsall, potential to come back this week. I believe that he's going to start practicing this week. And then you have Brock Purdy, right? Brock Purdy's the guy that unlocked Jauan Jennings last season. And I know that we're seeing this play out with Brian Thomas Jr., right? He has a different quarterback that we on paper think is an upgrade. And because it's just a different quarterback, it just ends up not working. So I think that there is something real to Purdy having a real connection with Jauan Jennings and there being more upside if he is the quarterback instead of Mac Jones. I mean, when Mac Jones first started, it was Kendrick Bourne's show. Where's Kendrick Bourne in the last 3 weeks? Been non-existent after 2 games where he was just an absolute monster, seeing all the targets from Mac Jones. So I think that Jennings is a wide receiver 3. That's why I have him ranked in that wide receiver 3 range. Not a smash start by any means, but with bye weeks, if you're in a pinch, I think you could do worse.
Yeah, and I think Purdy just levels the playing field for him a little bit. And I don't think the guys that are below him, there's anything that looks crazy egregious or anything. Let's talk about Alec Pierce, a guy that is below him. Shout out to Fitzy. When I jumped on the live stream on Sunday morning, I'm always there like 10 minutes early. And just hearing Fitzy talk up Alec Pierce, I remember you in multiple spots really liking him, and he went off last week. He's 32, a nice aggressive rank this week. Fitz, you're higher. You've got him at 28, Erickson at 29. So you guys are both higher than consensus. And they're going up against the Atlanta Falcons. So Fitzy, why don't you take this? Great call on Pierce last week, and you're ready to run it back.
Yeah, thanks, Welsh, but I can't take credit. I'm just sort of following the lead of our colleague Derek Brown on this. Debro had pointed out that Alec Pierce earns targets at a high rate and smashes in yards per route run against opponents that play a lot of single high safety. And that was Pittsburgh last week. Pittsburgh, not only have they been really kind of singed by perimeter receivers this year, they play single high at a high rate. And I was above consensus on Pierce last week, and he had 6 catches for 119 yards. Now Pierce gets a matchup against the Falcons, who play single high at the highest rate in the league, or at least they had going into week 9. And like Debro had pointed this out in our waiver article 2 weeks ago. Like, these next 2 weeks for Alec Pierce look really good. It's just a nice setup for him. So the Falcons don't play quite as much man coverage as the Steelers do, and Pierce generally does a lot better against man than he does against zone. But still, with the single high thing, the outlook for Pierce still looks pretty positive this week.
Shout out to the King of Bros. Erickson, what do you think? You echoing a lot of this same stuff? We're in the top 30 on Alec Pierce as well.
I just want to highlight the production he's done up to this point. He has 65 or more yards in 5 of his 7 games played this season. 69 or more receiving yards in 3 straight games. That's a nice number. And I think that he's always a candidate to catch a long ball. So I know sometimes we get hung up on, is it a Downs week? Is it a Pittman week? Is it going to be Tyler Warren bounce back season? Well, even if you see a game where Pierce maybe only gets 4 or 5 targets, well, he only needs 1 or 2 long passes to hit in your lineup, and he's always a candidate to catch a touchdown. So I think that he's just an excellent play this week as a high-end wide receiver 3, flex play. I'm trying to find ways to get Alec Pierce into my lineup. And I do think that even with last week, some of those numbers coming in garbage time, that wasn't really the case with Pierce. He had 6 first-half targets against the Steelers, which led all of the Colts receivers. And I think when you're looking at this specific matchup, who's the best Falcons defensive back? It's A.J. Terrell. He's probably going to match up a lot with Michael Pittman. So I think as Daniel Jones is the quarterback, it makes it really easy. Where's Josh Downs in the slot? And where's Alec Pierce, who's already been playing really, really well? I mean, he's playing at a very high level. They just traded away Adonai Mitchell. Like, they're committed to Alec Pierce, who's playing in a contract year. So he wants to get re-signed by the Indianapolis Colts. So I think that his tear just continues here. And Fitz pointed out another great matchup for him on paper. So, yeah, start Alec Pierce.
You know what Alec Pierce is? He is the poor man's Jordy Nelson. Like, he plays the same type of game, really good on the boundaries. He's just like, big and fast and can cook single coverage. I don't know. There was this like widespread take before the season, like Alec Pierce is bad. And I don't know. I've always thought he's a pretty good player.
Shout out to Jordy Nelson. There's an interesting group of like wide receivers right at the end here. I think Alec Pierce kind of belongs in it. He might be the king of them. On ECR, you've got Tez Johnson at 35, and I'm just going to throw it in here like Parker Washington. Boy, how exciting Parker Washington was for being a waiver claim on Monday. And then Tuesday, that went down the drain. But, this is still a potential week where, he might be floating into like startability, like, where's Myers? Does Brian Thomas play? All that type of stuff. This isn't necessarily meant to be around Parker Washington. I just think this group is interesting. But Tez is the play, and you can feel free to throw him in. But Tez is the guy to highlight here, wide receiver 35. You guys are both quite a bit lower, though, on him. And I think that's kind of the part is I think like Tez, Parker Washington, Alec Pierce, I think those guys are going to dominate a lot of questions for this coming week on people trying to figure out what to do at their wide receiver 3s or even flexes. Tez does not look like he's going to be the answer for you guys. Erickson, you're the absolute lowest, 43 on the list. What did Tez do to you?
That's not what Tez did to me. I just like some of these other wide receiver options like you laid out. Talking about the Rashid Shaheeds, right? I have no problem rolling him out against the Seattle, or as part of the Seattle Seahawks. He's played in this Clint Kubiak offense before. And I know he has insane upside because he can, especially in the confines of the Seattle Seahawks offense. So like that's just an example of a player I like a little bit more than Tez Johnson this week. What other receivers are going to come back for Tampa Bay? I know that Chris Godwin wasn't spotted at practice, so it looks like he's probably going to miss another week. So I think that will probably cause me to move Tez Johnson up a couple spots here. I just am more confident that Emeka Egbuka is going to come out of the gates and just be the alpha. After the bye week, he was dealing with that hamstring injury. I talked about him as a buy low 2 weeks ago on the trade show because he's seeing all the usage we could want. Just the production hasn't been there. I think the production is going to fall out of the bye week. And also the Patriots, their defense is a lot different when Christian Gonzalez is healthy versus when he's not healthy. Their defense is terrible when he misses. And he may have had a concussion last week, so TBD on whether he's going to play. If he does play, I think that does open up more opportunities for Tez Johnson because that means he's going to get more matchups against guys like Marcus Jones and Carlton Davis, who are much easier cornerbacks to beat. But if Christian Gonzalez doesn't play, I think it might just be the Ibuka show. So those are my thoughts on Tez.
Fitzy, is this like a misranked type of thing? I guess it's not like super far off where you have him. It's just this is the difference between a wide receiver 3 and then someone that's maybe flex. Your rank versus ECR at 35. You're at 39 again. Like numerically, I guess it's not that big, but do you kind of think this is maybe in the misranked territory?
I don't know about that. For me, wide receiver 39 was kind of a placeholder ranking, and I was either going to move that up or down depending on Chris Godwin's status. But yeah, you guys said it, like it's Wednesday, and apparently Chris Godwin was not seen at practice today for the Buccaneers. So it seems like he's not going to come back from his leg injury this week. And Tez has become kind of a thing in fantasy. He's had at least 43 receiving yards in 4 straight games. He's had 2 touchdowns in his last 4 games. Tez is wide receiver 24 in half-point PPR fantasy scoring over that stretch. So I'm probably going to be a little closer to ECR here if Godwin is ruled out.
Well, if you guys want more, go to fantasypros.com/rankings, where you guys can find all the ECR as it updates throughout the week and plenty more numerically as well. You want to get through it. If we did not answer a question based around your player, well, guess what? We've got start and sit live streams right here on the YouTube channel where you can come and ask any of your specific start and sit questions. Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you're on the podcast, go to youtube.com/fantasypros, subscribe, click the bell so you're notified, and then you can jump into those live streams. Make sure you do it. Want to answer all of your questions. That is going to do it for the wide receiver ranks for week 10. For Erickson and Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Chris Welsh. You guys have a great one, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.